welcome to Not Now in Theaters. My name is Will Turntail, and I'm a writer and film fan from California. This episode is all about The Driver, 1978. It is a Walter Hill neo-noir crime thriller that brings a minimalist style and roaring engines. The film is an intriguing cat-and-mouse game between a smooth getaway driver and an overconfident detective. It's a film that flopped when it was released, but it's made some superfans since that time, which we'll get into. And since everything here is shot in practical effects, there's a lot of actual, real dangerous car stuff going on, which is cool to see. So I'm excited to get into this movie with you. Before we start, a reminder that making films is hard and you have to respect that. So any criticisms are meant to be constructive. This review will contain spoilers. I'll do my best to call them out for you before they come up. Okay, let's get to the movie. The Driver, 1978 review, Walter Hill's old-school crime thriller with a minimalist style, maximum throttle. Ah, the getaway pilot. Whatever your heist film, whatever your cargo, many of film's thieving gangs have that all-important wheelman, or woman. These expert redline shifters come with a particular set of skills that are a problem for cops giving chase. Skidding sideways, around corners, barreling the wrong way down one-way streets, or skidding to perfect stops. As well-worn as a pistols-to-pistols standoff in an action film or an interrogation scene in a mystery, sometimes this heist movie mainstay is a throwaway, an expendable character killed off in numerous ways. Other times they've been given the spotlight, wise-talking career specialists, like in The Transporter, or as an entire team of driving aces, like in The Fast and the Furious. But if there weren't an Ancestry.com for these characters, you could trace many of them back to Walter Hill's The Driver, 1978. The Driver is Hill's attempt to bring a new flavor, an understated, minimalist European style to the otherwise rip-roaring American action heist movie genre. Hill had been the second unit director on the granddaddy of modern car chase films, Steve McQueen's Bullitt. So although Hill was directing only his second film, he was uniquely experienced in making an ambitious, and potentially dangerous, movie like The Driver fly. Yet while rubber looked ready to skid over the road, there were setbacks. Hill wrote the title role with Steve McQueen in mind, a dead-on casting that would instantly raise the film's profile. But McQueen turned the part down, wanting to avoid yet another role racing cars. EMI Films, the studio, turned to Charles Bronson, but the action dynamo, who had just worked with Hill on his directorial debut Hard Times, refused. Bronson felt Hill cut too much time from his wife and co-star, Jill Ireland's screen time in Hard Times' final cut, so he wouldn't sign on. Then, actor Ryan O'Neal's agent contracted Hill. While O'Neal was primarily seen as a comedy and romantic lead, he believed he could carry the quiet swagger of Hill's understated approach. Hill was satisfied with O'Neal, the studio was ready. Filming commenced, and post-production ended. But on release, The Driver crashed comprehensively. It failed domestically and internationally. And the critics weren't gentle. According to Hill, "I remember the studio had this huge sheaf of Xerox reviews they'd handed me. You could stop a fucking 45 slug with this stack. It was so thick. And of all the reviews in this 6-inch thick pile, there was only one good one." Despite the double belly flop of box office and critical rejection, The Driver has found an audience over time, rising to a respected 79% on the critical site Rotten Tomatoes. And the film has some high-profile love. Director Edgar Wright, director of films like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, refers to it as an underseen classic. He has revealed the title of his film, Baby Driver, is a direct homage to The Driver. Nicholas Winding Refn cited the film's influence on his movie Drive. And that filmmaker, who always seems to get quoted about older, overlooked movies, Quentin Tarantino, is a fan. And he has referenced the film in both Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction. But we're film fans, not acclaimed directors. We rank in entertainment value, not necessarily technical achievements. We admire the beauty of a finished bridge, while an engineer might admire its sturdy supports, ugly or not. So is The Driver a good movie? The plot of The Driver. The driver is an elusive criminal who takes money to drive on heist jobs. The detective is a forceful cop willing to go to extremes to haul him to justice. When the detective sets the driver up in a sting operation, he'll need help from the player to come out on top. Can the driver pull off his heist, or will the detective snare him in his trap? And to walk you through the cast of this movie, the driver is played by Ryan O'Neal, the detective by Bruce Dern, and the player by Isabelle Adjani. And you can read the rest of the main cast here in the transcript. Okay, so let's get into what I liked about The Driver. First, it's the movie's car chases, which adds 4 points. Being the crux of the film, after all, it's called The Driver, the car chases had to work, and they deliver thanks to some creative choices. Hill was fascinated by the number of shots captured from inside cars on Bullitt, an angle he brought to The Driver. That personalization, the drama inside the car while we witness the carnage outside it, is helpful. As his passengers wince at the next close call, the driver is unaware of the stakes, only concentrating on his next move. The film also switches to a POV cam. The camera sits on the front bumper. We stay there as he surges toward the back of a sedan, or as the driver barrels down the wrong side of the road, weaving through oncoming traffic. The angle gives the audience the roller coaster danger of about to slam into the big rig in the middle of the road as we whip around the corner. A movie made approximately 45 years ago is bound to age. But while the vintage skid show may not match the intensity of films like Mad Max Fury Road, though what does, there are benefits to the old school. There's no CGI, making all the danger refreshingly palpable, and Hill decided to keep all the car action after nightfall, setting these scenes apart. So the squealing tires and cranking of engines are solid here. Next, it's time for a little demonstration, which adds 3 points. And a warning, there are some small spoilers here. You can use the chapter skip if you prefer to not listen to them. Despite being a chase movie, it's the driver's demo that steals the show. When the driver meets Glasses and his gang, they demand to know just how good he is. A big mistake. Angry, the driver hops in their car and shows them his skills with a wild, angry ride around an empty car park. The unhinged menace of the usually quiet man as the driver slowly dismantles the car while the crew of thieves is terrified is a delight. The scene's strength lies in its confines and context. In the film The Aviator, Howard Hughes obsesses about clouds while shooting his World War I fighter pilot film Hell's Angels. That's because the cotton ball clouds gave context. As the planes whizzed past the clouds, the audience could tell how fast the planes were moving. Without that reference, the planes didn't look speedy. Here, all the concrete pillars of the parking garage, like those clouds, make the moment. The driver slams the throttle and swerves between them, upping the skill level and intensity for the audience to understand. The driver turns the rest of the garage into a madhouse playground. He comes to a stop ahead of a wall just in time to wreck the car's bumper, but not kill himself and his passengers. He intentionally hugs the wall to drag the bumper off the vehicle's face, or clips the handles of pipes, sending water gushing. It's harrowing fun. Next, it is the film's double crosses, which adds a point. As the detective sets up a risky scheme that could easily cost him his job and people's lives, all to catch the driver, tensions arise. And many players come together in the mix, all ready to jump ship and double-cross someone if the moment to take the money and run is there. Rather than a straightforward ride where the anti-hero is sure to get away, you're not certain of anyone's allegiances, including his ally, the player. With everyone being lone wolves, it adds the needed tension to the film. The plot becomes more than an excuse for chase scenes. And then there's the movie's grit and green visual palette, adding a point. You often think of the 1970s as the age of disco, glitz, and glamour. But The Driver shows the seedy underside of a city in the decade that reeks of police corruption and desperation. Hill says the film's primary visual influence was the work of artist Edward Hopper. And while you don't get a straight-up copy of the painter's Nighthawks, there's often minimal lighting and a green hue cast over the film, such as while the driver escapes or during his off hours. But it's also a world of deserted, dilapidated buildings and warehouses that populate this criminal element sphere. The choice locations helping to show the underworld is sitting right there, if you know where to look for it. So now let's get into what I didn't think worked so well. First, it is characters on the oh-so down low, which takes away 3 points. Hill wanted to give this genre film a new mold. He said, "There was not meant to be an everyday action movie. I was trying to do something a little more, or a little less, but I was trying to do something else." I admire Hill's desire to take a risk. But the movie plays it so quietly that it's like listening to a symphony with your ear pressed against the concert venue door because you couldn't afford a ticket to be inside. We know the driver likes country music and doesn't care for the top 2 buttons of his shirt. That's it. The detective is hell-bent on locking the driver up, but you can't picture him off-duty. Like a cartoon, he wouldn't exist past the edge of his desk at the station. And the film won't even tell us what crime the player committed in the past. The film stuffs the character's inner turmoil so far below the surface that we're questioning if it's actually there. And without the film guiding my emotions, I started to get disinterested. I can't fault any of the actors. O'Neill, Dern, Adjani, and the rest of the cast deliver the mysterious, understated performances you presume Hill wanted from them. I like the idea of the audience reading between the faint lines, but the lines here are painted in one thin coat, and you can barely see them. Next, this one is called Spare Some Dialogue, and it takes away 2 points. The lo-fi vibes extend to the dialogue, and whatever simmering tensions there could be don't ignite. The venerable Bruce Dern is a fit for the detective. The somewhat handsy, obsessive investigator talks enough to offset the other characters' intense silence. But the policeman becomes corny. What's the point of his latest rant when he's picking on characters who act like pet rocks? With everything dialed low, there's no playfulness between O'Neill's driver and Dern's detective, making their scenes predictable. So adding it all up, the driver scores 4 points. On my scale of let's not watch, should I watch, or go watch this movie, I'm going to give it my should I watch rating. The driver was ignored by audiences and ridiculed by critics. Still, it laid the tracks that other wheelman films like Drive or Baby Driver have been happy to riff off from with great success. With its hot-blooded nighttime car chases, gritty underworld staging, and washy green colors, it aimed for the artistic over the formulaic genre piece. You must applaud Hill, cast, and crew's approach, daring to work up something new. But while its sparse style and distance from its characters were intentional and well executed, I found the trick realized but not paying off. The driver, the player, and the detective don't form a memorable trio, nor do they delight in their deadly game. Still, director Edgar Wright likens the film's impact to the band The Velvet Underground. Wright says, "There's that quote about the Velvet Underground Andy Warhol album. Nobody bought it at the time, but the people who did buy it went on to form a band." He says, "I feel the same way about The Driver. The people who are watching are directors. We watched that movie and were excited and inspired. And I had to make a movie called Baby Driver just to prove to you that The Driver is influential." So there you have it. Maybe you're an aspiring director, and this film, like an unsweetened tea, is just right to your taste. But for film fans like myself, I wanted the sugar. And the movie turned out to be more historically relevant than entertaining today. I wish the movie had gone more in the direction of Hard Times, Hill's previous movie, and which was covered in episode 53 of this podcast if you're interested. Had The Driver been as lively and fun as Hard Times, but with the action and car chases of this one, all of Hill's writing talent could have come together to give us a show. The legacy of The Driver. So what's the legacy of The Driver? Well, it would be a stretch to say Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive ripped this movie off, especially as that film is based on a book, and it certainly built out its character motivations and plot differently. But no doubt the influence of The Driver soaked into Drive. Refn has reportedly even told Hill about his movie's homages, which Hill is fine with. I can't speak to Baby Driver, as I, believe it or not, have always forgotten to go watch that movie, and will make another note to do it. But Edgar Wright already spoke of its influence, and I trust the echoes are there. I do think that if Hill had gotten his original choice for the lead, Steve McQueen, This movie would have done more business then and would be publicly remembered now. That's no disrespect to Ryan O'Neal's legacy, of course, and he's great in it, but my impression is O'Neal's fans were so into him as another image, and the turn against type didn't seem to bring in the audience. What I think is funny about Ryan O'Neal, who plays the driver, is that he was an amateur boxer before going into acting. I think that's a wise decision. If you had O'Neal's classically good-looking face, it would be wild to let someone smash it in the boxing ring. Anyhow, the reason O'Neal stood out so much in this role is that it wasn't the type he normally took on. He broke through in TV, including soap opera, and he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor in 1970's Love Story, which I'm presuming plays out as it sounds. But by the time The Driver came around, his career had faltered, and so he was trying to come up with some new angles. His Wikipedia page has a quote that specifically calls out The Driver among films he should not have done for being, quote, off the beaten path for me. So even though Walter Hill loved O'Neal's performance, it didn't do O'Neal too many favors, and he didn't look back on it fondly. For Isabelle Adjani, this was her first Hollywood role, and since the movie didn't do well, she believes it hurt her career. According to IMDb trivia about this movie, she called it a mistake, lamenting that afterward, the only offers in Hollywood were bad ones. Don't feel too bad for Isabelle Adjani, though, if I'm saying her name right. I mentioned her in an episode about Luc Besson's Subway, episode 40 of this podcast. If you don't know her, well, she's a French actress with a hell of a career that you can look up. This movie's characters work very much like Walter Hill's do. You have a strong, silent type in the driver paired with the detective who constantly chatters. This quiet man, loud man dynamic is something Hill would repeat many times in his films. You can see it in Hard Times, but also in movies like 48 Hours or Red Heat. Bruce Dern was Oscar nominated for Best Supporting Actor for the movie Coming Home in 1978, the same year The Driver was released. So it seems like, even though this movie didn't do too well, he was more than alright personally. Dern would team back up with Walter Hill a few times, and sadly not for Hill's more successful films. He shows up in the western Wild Bill, and he's also got a role in Last Man Standing, Hill's authorized remake of Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. But we don't have to worry about Bruce Dern. He's worked with directors such as Alfred Hitchcock, Sam Peckinpah, Sidney Pollack, Joe Dante, Roger Corman, Alexander Payne, Quentin Tarantino, Francis Ford Coppola, and many others. And yes, he's Laura Dern's father. And for Walter Hill, he's got somewhat lucky with this movie. He had already gotten deep into The Warriors, his absolute worldie, by the time this film was released. He has said, "Had I not been shooting The Warriors at that time, I don't think my career would have survived." You have to believe some things were meant to be. It is said that around 1996, Luc Besson was in talks to remake this movie, but the project never materialized. The 1999 video game Driver is said to draw heavily on this film, and Driver Parallel Lines from 2006, another game in the series, takes place in 1978, the same year as this movie's release. I don't think there's any similarity to the 2019 film The Driver, which I have never seen, but it says it is about a zombie apocalypse and a guy driving around trying to keep his family alive. There's a bit of a Walter Hill Films Easter egg in this movie. According to IMDb's trivia page, the Torchy's bar that appears in this film is the same one you'll see in 48 Hours and Streets of Fire. And Tara King appears as, quote, Frizzy in both The Driver and 48 Hours. So maybe these are all in the same universe. Who knows? Also, according to IMDb, the scene where the driver smashes up the Mercedes to prove his skills is copied almost to the second in the 1980 Bollywood movie Qurbani. So there's another influence, if you can even call it that. I'm not sure when the word influence becomes a synonym for ripoff. It used to seem like it meant style, but nowadays it seems a soft way of saying stealing exactly the thing you like. But I digress. Okay, that's all I have for this episode. Thank you for listening. And if you haven't seen it yet, go check out The Driver. And if you have seen it before, what do you think? Does the minimalist style work for you better than it did for me? You can reach out and let me know on Blue Sky using the link in the transcript, or just search for Will Turn Tail. And if you like this episode, would you please take a minute or two of your time to leave me a review or rating on this podcast if you haven't done that before? A few people have rated it, and I appreciate that. It makes my day to see that. Trust me. Or if you're listening on YouTube, hit that like button and subscribe. New episodes of this podcast come out on Thursdays. I do not know what next week's episode will be. It won't be The Mist. I know for a fact it is rainy and cold outside here, and there's no chance I'm sitting down with that sad sack of a story, even though it's a good movie. I still haven't recovered from watching it weeks ago, but someday we'll face it together. I promise. It may be the Brandon Lee movies that are not The Crow I keep hinting about, or something totally random. Whatever it is, I hope you join me again next Thursday. This podcast episode is production copyright of Overegged Media LLC, located in Sacramento, California. Reference photos linked in the transcript are copyrighted by the Internet Movie Database. This review's factual information was gathered through online sources like Wikipedia, IMDb, or interviews. Misrepresentations and errors are possible, but unintentional. The introduction music was Neon Laser Horizon by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. And the exit music and additional music are also by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, also licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. The names of those tracks are Voxel Revolution, Vibing Over Venus, and Proto Funk. See you next time.